Hey Ron, to start off, can you tell us a little bit about yourself as well as your company, Wines That Rock?
Sure, Rick. Myself, I was actually born in Queens, New York, Forest Hills, if you want to go that far back. And, was raised in the city for a while until my folks split up and ended up moving to Connecticut when my mom went to Connecticut for employment. And, one thing as I've gotten older as an entrepreneur, I definitely like the ability. I had so much passion for music and pop culture and film, but really music. I was just a music freak. I knew, more about music than anybody in my high school and college. I would duck out and drive to New Haven or New York or Boston to see a show on a Tuesday night. I mean, I was that kind of kid that just loved music. And I always said when I was younger, if I could figure out a way to, absolutely get music somehow entwined in my future, that would be awesome. I wasn't a musician. I was just a fan. And, I was lucky enough to kind of hit, as they say, all the universes have to come together sometime. And it's all about timing is everything. And so one cool thing is the internet started to happen. And I had some experience in, technology. I worked for an IBM career school for a number of years. I was part of a software company in Hartford, Connecticut that built training software, very cutting edge, very innovative, but really just started following the internet very, very early. And I finally kind of got this thing in my head, okay, understand the internet, love technology, not a technologist myself, more of a creative marketing person who can connect a lot of dots. What can I do to take my passion for music and use the technology that I've been exposed to and then try to figure something out? And that's always the big thing with an entrepreneur. I mean, you got a lot of ideas and they're all out in front of you. And how do you corral those into one space, in one sandbox, and get super, super focused? So, it was just dumb luck timing that it all came together. I had enough technical background. The cool thing about my career path too is I was exposed to some great software engineers, software architects, real visionary people who could get stuff done, built, operational, where then I could, I was kind of like, it was like building a house. You had the guys who were building the house. I was not that guy. I wasn't putting in nails. I wasn't putting in electricity. I wasn't putting in plumbing. I was kind of visioning what the end product would be. So I was really fortunate in my career, my entire career, to just be surrounded by really, really good people who had the same vision, who, maybe they weren't as passionate about music as me, but they were passionate about the technology to take things to people, consumers, and do different things. So, so that's kind of how it all started in the 90s for me. And then, before we started Wines That Rock, really what got me into the music space is I was part of a collective, one of the founders of a company called UltraStar back in New York City. And we really developed the online fan club model. We always laugh about it, and I don't want this to come off the wrong way, but we really created this community that was Facebook before Facebook. And many years before, like 10 years earlier. Like, we wanted to create this community that was self-absorbing, kind of a walled garden for music artists, where they could express themselves. Their fans could feel like I'm in a space, and if I'm a fan of a band or I'm a fan of an artist, I'm with other like people, and really come together to do a variety of different things. And the cool thing about our goal was working with big music artists, Rick, was that a lot of these guys had libraries of music, and they had history, and they toured, and they always had new music coming out. So we wanted to say, okay, how do we take all these things a typical music artist does? How do we put it into an experience that will then allow people to come in and do things they can't touch in the outside world? And so that was the genesis of UltraStar. We were very, very, very lucky. Again, lots of timing, luck, right place, right time. Our first client was actually David Bowie. And David got really, really behind this. And David actually invested money in the company. And he was very active in the company. He came to meetings. He was on conference calls. And he really saw the vision of what the internet could do very, very early. So to have that support and his brand equity, and myself and my partners and my team and my technologists who all could take all that and make it happen So in the beginning, fans of David Bowie, and as the company grew, I mean, so many other, the Rolling Stones, The Who, the Red Hot Chili Peppers, Mariah Carey, Madonna. We had about 40 in the heyday of UltraStar. We had about 40 clients, and I think most of them you've heard of. And we ventured into sports for a while and did the same thing, because we always felt people have an affinity. You have your favorite. You always have your favorite. It could be your favorite soccer team, your favorite baseball team, your favorite artist, your favorite director. Everybody has favorites. So we just happen to figure out, okay, let's go play with the big favorites who have lots of fans to make this sustainable, to make this profitable, and a great experience for people. So before we started Wines to Rock, we had to do UltraStar. And UltraStar eventually was absorbed by Live Nation, and as they say, all of us who were involved left at different times, and but taking all those relationships, and again, as an entrepreneur, I think so much. You'll meet a lot of smart people. You'll meet a lot of people way more intuitive or even innovative than you, but are they good partners for you? And that's one thing I always tell. You and I have had discussions, and I teach at St. Louis University, and I tell the students all the time, make sure if you're going to start a business, one of the things that I think break businesses more than anything, number one is success. If you build something, doesn't mean someone's going to buy it. But number two, make sure you have good partners, man. Make sure, just because the person's your best friend on your softball team, or, your drinking buddy drinking beers, doesn't mean he's going to be a great business partner. Put a lot of thought into that. But I was fortunate because I had great partners, and we all had a different set of skills. That's another thing too. I've always felt you don't want to have a bunch of people in the room exactly like yourself. And I know my strengths, but I also know my weaknesses. I always think about my weaknesses because, okay, those are the gaps I want to fill. I want to say, what, I'm not good at this. I'm not good at looking at spreadsheets, or I'm not good at doing logistical operations. And so find people who do that. So anyway, yeah, so that's kind of the baseline of how I got into music, rock and roll. I worked on some side projects with Aerosmith, and a long time part of the team that represented The Cure. Neither one of those bands were a part of UltraStar, but just through relationships, did some other things with those bands over the years. So yeah, and then like all things as an entrepreneur, it's like, okay, what's the new bright shiny object? And that's that was really kind of the start of it, because I kind of hung out for a little bit of time, took a deep breath, just kind of like I worked so hard for so long. And just said, what can I do now? What's the next move? And yeah, so I came up with this idea. I was just in a wine shop one day, buying some wine and beer, and I'm looking at, and I didn't know much about wine. Kind of when I do have a drink at 6 o'clock on a Friday night, I craft beer is my go-to. But I started drinking wine, get a little more serious in wine. And the thing about wine is that, number one, there's so many bottles of wine, and there's so many labels. And I kind of put it together, and I said, if I like music, and I walk into a wine shop, and I see like this, I wore this hat on purpose because this is Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon, one of the best-selling albums of all time, and they were a long-time client of Wines to Rock. Is if I saw this, this iconic logo or album cover on a bottle of wine, I would at least walk over there. And that's half the battle when you've got a consumer product. You want people to touch your product. That's really a very, very important thing. You want them to walk over, because if you go next time you're in a wine shop, or any place that sells wine, there literally will be thousands and thousands of bottles. So my idea was, how do we make that bottle stick out, and how do we make a nice, and then a lot of things too when you look at it is, how do you make that affordable, and also how do you put good product in? Because all good consumer products, in my personal opinion, is people will try something one time, but if the product's not good, number one, you're not going to get that repeat business, and that's the key, is getting the person not buying the first bottle, but it's that third bottle, fifth bottle. Then you've got a loyal customer. Loyalty is such a huge thing in consumer products. Yeah, so just kind of thought about it over the week. I said, and I obviously went on the internet, and trying to see if anybody was doing anything quite like that. And I couldn't find anything real serious. So, as they say in the music business, I called my old partners and said, let's put the band back together. I've got this crazy idea, and let's see if we can pull it off. So that was the start of Wines That Rock. The model is you take a bottle of wine. You take a bottle of wine. I got this on my desk, so I don't know if I can show this to you. But this is one the guy from the Flaming Lips actually did. But anyway, I don't know if this is coming in, but you take a bottle of wine and you put an album cover on it. And that was it. That was the model. And obviously a lot of moving parts to see if we could pull it off, but that was the underlying model. And we knew we could find wine. We knew we could find glass, bottles, corks. We knew a bunch of great designers. Landed on a super designer in Illinois to help us out. And then infrastructure and obviously the investment to start the company. So that's UltraStar had to happen for Wines to Rock to happen. And then we're like, okay, let's do this. So that's how we started Wines to Rock. Long-winded way, but it was a great journey. And Wines to Rock was literally almost 15 years in the making.
Wow.
It took all that rock and roll experience before I got to Wines to Rock to get behind me. And and the same team, I will say, fast forward to 2020, it's the same team. I mean, so back to my point of picking really good partners, Howard and Bill, who I've worked with on UltraStar and even on other projects in my career, we're all still part of Wines That Rock.
That's awesome. And so having started multiple companies, what would you say is the most challenging thing in running your own business?
Yeah, I think you learn on the go a lot, because when you start, you're typically in stealth mode, and you don't, unless you raise a ton of money, you really got to do so much on your own and make decisions. And it's not like a big corporation where you have an HR department and you've got rows of desks and people and offices and resources. It's so much of really taking responsibility to obviously bring your own key attributes, but it is, and I'm going to go back to this. Just really trying to figure out, who sees the vision, who's just not in this. Oh, that's a cool idea. I'll join you. But do you really see the vision where this company can be 1, 3, and 5 years from now? So I think it's a combination of that. Obviously, one of the simple answers is obviously managing financial resources, because I'm part of Stadia Ventures here in St. Louis. You work with us this last cohort, and when you look at everybody's spreadsheet and everybody's got burn rate, churn rate, everybody's trying to just pay their bills. So there are all these things. You always have this pressure on you to do. And I think a lot of people rush out there too, and you really want to make sure everything's working, because you don't get so many chances to launch a brand or launch an experience. So and you are anxious because you want to get your product out there. You want to start generating revenue for yourself, the company, your investors. And I think people try to get out too fast, and they try to, I believe now later in life that, test. If it take an extra couple of months to launch, figure it out, because, you don't want the hiccups. I know so many stories of companies just like great ideas, great people, but they just, the product just wasn't ready for prime time. So every couple of weeks I get up in the morning, have a cup of coffee, and I just get a legal pad and put boxes, and I just want to make sure that I check all these boxes over the last 2 weeks. So, and you want to create your perfect storm. You really, really do. So, make sure all those boxes are checked. It's a big piece of advice I can give you.
Got it. And kind of on the flip side, so you've worked with David Bowie, and I've heard from Tim Hayden that you were also in the room when the first email was sent, if that's true.
I was in a testing room at IBM in Purchase, New York, when an email, and and there's different stories on this, but they were doing testing with commercial email. So there was always email in the government and military. There's always that in the private sector, universities. But this was they actually had set up a test in somebody's home to somebody else's home in California. So it was I was in the room that was monitoring the email, and there's been different stories over the years, so I don't know if it's true, but it sure sounds good. So at least the guys at IBM told us this is the first commercial email that's ever been sent without attachment to military, government, or university research. So I believe him.
So with all these highlights from, I guess, your startup journey, what would you say was the best or most satisfying moment for you?
I mean, yeah, really, I mean, it's a simple answer, and had nothing to do with money or anything. If you came to in junior high school, if you came into my house, in my basement, in my bedroom, I just had like all these posters of all these glam rock bands and artists. David Bowie, the guy behind me, Mark Bolan from T-Rex. I was fortunate, like, a girl moved across the street from me from London, and she introduced me to all this music going on in London. And so I was just I was a Bowie fanatic. I mean, I just saw you see the vision, you see what he's trying to do. And the cool thing about that is I got to it early. I mean, I was like 10 years old when I experienced David Bowie for the first time. I didn't know what was coming. Like he had an amazing run in the 70s, and I didn't know that was coming. But to answer after all this and championing glam music and Bowie over the years, and people, especially in America where he hadn't made it, or the kids I went to school with were all into bands like Aerosmith and Led Zeppelin, and those kinds of bands that were just super popular, and rightfully so. But then so I in the 90s, the moment that kind of has always stuck with me and shook me was being in a conference room, and all of a sudden two doors open up, and there's David Bowie. And he actually came in it was crazy. He came with a backpack, and he pulled out a pad and a pencil or a pen, and he got right into it. And he said, we're going with this, man. We are going to launch UltraStar. Let's figure this out. And we had a multiple hour meeting, and it was just awesome. I mean, the first 10 minutes I was, damn, I'm in the room with David Bowie. But he really, I mean, I've said this before a lot in the press and in interviews. I mean, he's one of those people you meet in life, rare people that I always think that whatever I don't care what he would have done, whether he was a teacher or a curator at a museum or anything, he would have been successful. And I got that impression. I didn't know that going into that meeting, but I've never taken a train back to Connecticut after that meeting, and just thinking about, his seriousness and his focus. I said, because number one, he's putting his name behind UltraStar, but also, he was in it for all the right reasons. And so, yeah, I mean, I know that's, it wasn't, I mean, that was really the thing. And I think back of it, and like it's 2020 now, and I think back, and that was just that, and it was, it was just myself, one of my partners, Bob, God rest his soul, and Bill, and David, and we just sat there for hours and crafted what we thought, Bowie, it was UltraStar, but the Bowie launch was called BowieNet, and what BowieNet should be. And also, but you think, man, that's a good part. Back to my original point, man, that's a good partner, because you got Bowie there saying we should do this, we should do that. And he wasn't even demanding. He was like, what do you think about this? He really engaged everybody in the room, and so that was just a magical moment. I mean, I've been backstage. I mean, I was on stage with The Cure for like 2 hours doing this pirate filming of a video we were putting together, and you got 35,000 fans out. That was cool and stuff, but that was cool. So there's a lot of cool stuff I've done, but the Bowie thing was just magical. It's because I was a Bowie freak, man. If I had ever gotten a tattoo, I probably would have gotten the Bowie lightning bolt somewhere, not my face, but somewhere around there.
Yeah, that's awesome. Mm-hmm. And so, back to kind of right now, what are you focusing on? Like, are you thinking of starting something new, or kind of what are your future plans?
Yeah, cool, man. Great question. Wines That Rock. Like I said, I got great partners, and one of my partners' name is Howard Jackowitz. He's awesome, and he just runs that company. He's basically taken over day to day for many, many years, and so I kind of float in when they need me, and we discuss things or just kind of updates, and but we've developed this fan club affinity model. We launched Awesome Wines with Star Trek. That was huge. We did a project with the zoos and aquariums. We've done projects with NPR, the Bachelor TV show. So we're always looking for those niche projects, and those projects have a lifetime, and we know that that's our model. Very few. Star Trek will go on for a long time because Star Trek is just a brand that's been around forever. But some of the projects like the Bachelor, kind of has its popularity. and then you kind of get in it, and then you get out, and sales go up, and then sales kind of get flat, and then you look for your next project. That's just the model of UltraStar. And then about 3 years ago, well, actually more than 3 years ago, I met and this is cool being an entrepreneur, because as you, Rick, build your resume over the years, people will start coming to you. I mean, so you kind of build up, what your experience is. And a local entrepreneur in St. Louis actually started the first non-alcoholic craft beer company in the United States. And before Jeff started it, we had gotten together when it was just kind of a seed of an idea. And just discuss, and we just got together as some mutual friends, and with my experience in obviously direct to consumer, e-commerce, digital marketing, all the things that you need to do to build a brand online, Jeff just wanted to get together, pick my brain, and we became fast friends. And I really said, as time went on, I'm like, this is really, really an awesome idea. I love it. This is like, this is innovative. I love innovation. That's what motivates you. What can I do that nobody else has done? If you look at my career, I mean, UltraStar was the first online fan club. I mean, it was. You can't argue with that. Wines That Rock, there is not, other, artists have put out bottles of wine, but there's really not a company behind the wine industry, the direct-to-consumer, the retail, the wine club industry like Wines That Rock. And then now the opportunity to get involved. This was a real big reason I got involved, because it was so innovative. Number one, it was up my alley. Number two, I was really intrigued by the potential of using this innovation and technology to actually brew non-alcoholic beer, because it's not, it's something that's really, really hard to do. And so that got me, so I had said to Jeff, because you always, can you help me out? Like, advise me in ways you can help me. We'll set up some digital e-commerce. And I just went to him and said, listen, man, I want in, because I think I can bring value, but I also, more than anything, is I think I can be a team member on your team that can really, really help you drive things. And I have a passion for this, and I see the future of not only non-alcoholic craft beer, but other things that are happening in the marketplace. I'll say this right now, and I think in 2 to 4 years from now, you're going to see, number one, THC in this country. I mean, Canada's already legalized marijuana. I think very strongly that more and more states are going to get behind the legalization of marijuana. And then you've got a product in the non-alcoholic craft beer that you can infuse with THC, and you've got a great product. It tastes good. People, for whatever reason, you want to drink a beer, take the edge off, get your glow on, whatever. So I see all these things happening, but then I see all these things in the health industry with people your age, Rick, they're more health conscious. Their lifestyle is totally different than, when I grew up and, your age. And, so, to be around something that's healthy and a product that's really about your well-being. So that's what, my focus really, really is on now with consumer products and, helping the growth of, with well-being, both at the retail and also digitally and also e-commerce. And it's fun because, you can go on Google right now and search non-alcoholic craft beer companies in the United States. And, there may be 5 or 6. I mean, totally dedicated, there's less than 5 totally dedicated who do nothing in alcohol. Some of the big boys get in, they're like, oh man, those sales are going up and up and up. And that industry and that, demographic is really, really exploding. If you look at all the data that comes out, we'll make a non-alcoholic beer, but their core business is alcohol. Well-being is, solely dedicated to brewing, world-class non-alcoholic craft beer. So that is, so it's exciting. We got a long ways to go. Started very humbly in St. Louis, and we're probably got to be approaching about 30 states now, 28, 30 states, and number one seller on Amazon, number one seller on Shopify. Just continue to grow the business, but we got a long way to go, and we're already planning for like 2022. I mean, we've got so much cool stuff going on. But everything up to that, number one, I go back because I always tell people, look at the journey and how you got where you are today. If you go back, I mean, really my first experience were with e-commerce and understanding technology. And then obviously working with brands with UltraStar, and then obviously Wines That Rock in the space of alcohol, because distribution is distribution. You want to be in the shelves of, Trader Joe's, and you want to be in the shelves of Whole Foods. I've done that. And then now working with an innovative product that, gets great reviews, great press, great growth, everything about it. That's what's going to occupy my time, right now. So very, very, very exciting to to be part of something super innovative. And also help, I continue to help Stadia, the Stadia companies that come in, Stadia Ventures, obviously, one of the top esports focused venture funds in the United States, globally now, globally. And so, different businesses come through there. And, I like to, I'm working with one right now called, one of the cohort ones called Intelligim. They're based in Israel. We've done a lot because they don't have any presence here. So we really set them up for success in the United States and in Canada and hockey and soccer. So we always try to help monitor these companies. It's like giving back, it's like teaching. I'm an adjunct professor at SLU, and you go down there and you give, really teach real world experiences. And it's fun giving back to the younger generation and talking about, all the things you did right. But I think you learn a lot more from all the things I did wrong. So you and I have had some conversations. I talked to our other intern, Trey, because you always, nobody likes to talk about all the things they did wrong, but nobody has a perfect, very few people have a perfect journey to get from point A to point B. So, so that's kind of my story.
Awesome. Well, that's it for today's interview. Thank you, Ron, for taking the time to do this. I wish you the best of luck and stay safe.